Hello and welcome to a video about Stereolab and how to deal with Hill and Dale discs, so early acoustic discs in which the modulation is encoded vertically. I'm going to use two different types of discs today, the Edison Diamond disc and some discs from the Pâté Frère French pre-First World War mostly discs. The Edison discs are great fun because they're actually rather thick, about 1/4 of an inch thick, with a cotton filler in it, with an early plastic for the recording surface, and a much quieter surface than was the normal shellac. And for that reason, you can actually get the pitch of the grooves is actually finer than on the majority of 78s, and they last quite a bit longer. And quite frankly, the quality is actually fairly good, and certainly a lot better than a lot of shellac records of the period. So it was quite an advanced technology. The discs turn at about 80 RPM, and for this, for all the needle drops we'll be doing for historic recordings, I'm using this little Technics direct drive turntable. It's called the SLD1. It's quite easy to get on internet auction sites, and it's easily modifiable to run between a wide range of speeds. It's a little circuit which you can put inside the servo, and I've got mine which goes between 53 and 108, which deals with pretty much all the historical records that I know of. So we're going to record a needle drop of this. So the deck actually spins up quite quickly, even at this quite high speed. Now, very quietly you can hear that. We'll use that. The monitoring is just simply coming off. I have the Groove Sleuth preamps being used here, and I'm taking simply the RIAA monitor, which is not the correct equalization at all, but it's just for confidence monitoring, just to check that the needle isn't slipping. And the second discs that we'll be using today are discs by the Pâté brothers, in Paris. They started off in a cafe in Pigalle, in the rather racy part of Paris, and then eventually made a lot of money and moved to very swish headquarters in opposite the Opéra Garnier, where they were able to get many stars. And one of the disadvantages of the Edison discs is that some of the artists are a bit Edison had a rather special taste in music, but the Pâté brothers actually recorded a lot of very important. This isn't a particularly important recording, but it's just an example. But they were able to record most of the real great singers, the divas and the great tenors of the period. They had an interesting process, and they recorded onto discs, and then had a mechanical pantograph system which took that disc, the cylinder recording, and turned it into a disc recording, which accounts for some rather poor quality in some of this. These run quite fast, so we're going to be using 90 RPM to record this. And the surprise and delight feature of the Pâté discs is that they run the wrong way round, so they start in the middle and go out to the edge. I'll just restart the software. So now we have our needle drops of our Hill and Dale recordings. We need to process them in Stereolab. So we need to open the application, and we'll find the two needle drops that we have. So that's Edison and Pâté. In fact, we've already set this up, so the historic equalizations, they're set for flat acoustic. There are lots of different options here. One thing you can do with acoustic is to perhaps use European 78s. That adds a bit of bass boost. But really, with these very early recordings, there's so much rumble that frankly, it just introduces more noise. So I think flat acoustic is the best. Here we have the phono parameters, so I've set it up for Hill and Dale disc. Cartridge channel balance is almost worth keeping on all the time. It makes up for any imbalance there might be in the cartridge gain. So set crackle for 78s, not obviously pop and click for 70 for LPs, and gradient needle scratch removal. This is our own noise reduction, surface noise reduction for 78s. We experimented with the techniques used in a lot of other software using Fourier transform, but found that they introduced unacceptable levels of artifacts. And so our preference was for a different system, and that's what's employed here. And then spatial rumble filter, almost always leave that on really with any needle drop. Rumble filters have got a bit of a bad name because they introduce group delay phase problems at LF, and it's true that a filter which turns over 20 hertz, let's say for example, will introduce quite a bit of group delay, but this is an acausal digital filter, so there's no phase distortion whatsoever, so it's very much better to keep it on because there's nearly always some sort of clutter and useless information down below the subsonic from a record. We could go for high res. That would take it up to a higher, take it up to high level double sampling rate. I haven't bothered to do that. Dither should always leave really enabled, and that's ambisonics. In terms of general, I think it's worth. It's very much better if a library is continually at the same volume. It's nice to have different tracks all at the same loudness volume. So we calculate EBU R128 loudness, and you can set the LUFS. Broadcast people work to a lower value than this, but this is recommended for normal record collections. So that's the standard default setting. And once we've done that, it's very straightforward. You just simply press the convert button. I've set the destination to be the desktop just because it's easier to see them files arrive. Now, we have an option actually of what to do when things clip. I prefer to leave this warning up so you can make a decision, and you can either choose to clip the audio or to attenuate it. Attenuate it normally is better. And I would normally say just put this always now on, but it's interesting to see it do it each time, so I'm going to leave it so it comes up each time. So we're going to attenuate a little bit. This one's just clipping by 1 dB. And then this one. Right, so this one clips a bit higher, so it's 7 dB, so that's quite high actually, but we'll still attenuate it. Okay, so that gives us now the two files, which you can just see on the desktop, and we will now close Stereolab and listen to them.
Et tranquille, c'est donc super pour la bladie.